All right, I'll give it just a few quick seconds just to make sure that it's live and it's working just fine. But thank you, David, for joining me. Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Pre-Sales Unplugged, the Leadership Playbook. I'm Arvi, the founder of Elite Talent, and we help SaaS companies hire top-tier pre-sales and post-sales talent. But today is not about us. Today is about spotlighting the people behind the roles, the leaders shaping the go-to-market teams, and the lessons they've learned along the way. I'm super excited today. I'm joined by David Schultz. He's actually the head of solution consulting over at Employee. And I'm really excited. Thank you, David, for being here with me today.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me. Looking forward to the chat.
Awesome. Absolutely. Yeah, I think obviously you have a very impressive background. So I'm really excited to do this with you and just share a ton of value for everybody looking at this, whether it's live or later on the recording. I'd love to just get started a little bit in terms of like how you even got into the space overall, like solutions engineering or solution consulting.
Accidentally is the short answer. I, uh,
Yes,
I, which I think is probably not uncommon for folks in the space.
right.
I was working at American Express in product. I had a friend who had joined a startup, and at Amex, I'd done some, I guess, what you would call solutions consulting. I didn't realize it at the time because they didn't have a formal team. And just from there, I chatted with him, started to talk to the company, and found out that I kind of want to give this a try. And took a chance, and that was 2017. So yeah,
I love
about
that.
8 years ago.
So
Yeah,
I would assume you started originally as an individual contributor or straight into a leadership role.
I started almost both. I started as an IC. The gentleman who hired me was an awesome dude, but he went on sabbatical in
Mhm.
6 months, and he just didn't come back. Like he
Okay.
wanted to take a break, and so 6 months into being an SC, I ended up being a leader of three. I mean, not a large team, but I ended up
Yeah.
running a team.
That's a very quick switch actually for obviously, kind of being new into the role because 6 months is a lot of time, but at the same time for the role, it's kind of I feel like where most sales roles start really ramping up.
Yeah.
What did you think of that experience, or how was it switching so fast into like a managerial position?
I had so being in a managerial position I had done before, so that
Mhm.
part maybe wasn't a transition. Um, Being in a managerial role in a role I'm still learning,
Yeah,
was definitely a challenge.
yeah,
But the opportunity was there, so I just raised my hand and I figured,
yeah,
bet on me, I'll figure it out. That was kind of
absolutely.
what I did.
Yeah, I love that. I think I mean, just like the role itself, right? But to take chances in life, you have to sometimes just do it when you're not ready. But the opportunity's there, it's presented itself, so why not? And sometimes it's better to learn by doing than just learning, 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 and never really implementing it.
Yeah, that's kind of
So
the vibe of an SC is learn by doing. Yeah.
very true. Okay, cool. So obviously you got an early start into leadership and you've built and led SE teams. What is one lesson that you've learned that maybe every aspiring SE leader should know right now?
Uh, you got to trust others in the process. I very much would include like ancillary teams, like my sales team, potentially implementation. End of the day, you
Yeah,
have to trust your own judgment, but build and foster relationships, close ones with people around you that you can trust their judgment as well when you're on the fence. And I think that was pretty important to me. Outside of just the individual SCs on the team that I always would include as part of an interview process.
yeah, yeah, I love that. Did you just kind of the thought occurred to me, did you have any pushback maybe from the other team at the time when you converted into a leadership role and you were kind of new at it? Maybe they had more experience. Did you get any pushback on that at all?
I think there was a gentleman who was hired the month before the boss went on sabbatical and didn't come back. That I think felt that he maybe had more
Yeah,
experience and should be running the team, but the other individual, no. And that the everyone else though in the organization was very much
it's
like,
good
yeah,
with it.
this makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah. And how would you say, like in those situations, how do you handle things as a leader?
I mean, you have to understand where they're coming from first and foremost. I'm a big
Yeah,
on empathy and just trying to figure out like why they feel the way they do.
yeah,
But at some point, it's either you're along for the ride or you're not. This is a decision
right.
that wasn't just made by me. I didn't just say, "Hey, it is now mine." Our CRO had to make the decision that it was the right move for the company,
Yeah,
and either you're okay with it or maybe this isn't the place for you. And I hate to say that because I don't ever want to see people leave, but you know, you
yeah.
can't have someone who's constantly combating you and second guessing everything because they think they could do the job better.
Yeah, I love that you said that, and that's why I dove into this a little bit deeper because I think it's important. In leadership, sometimes you are going to be questioned, and it really depends a lot on how you handle those situations, right? To really showcase your leadership. So I love how you handle that, and I would have said the same thing. When it comes to like balancing technical expertise with strong communication skills, how do you feel about that? I know it's sometimes like industry dependent, but at least when you're hiring, what do you look at the most, or where do you think it's like the easiest to learn versus what they should have?
I think it's easier to learn things, knowledge. Like it's easy to learn technical API documents, easy to learn how a product works. It's harder to
Hmm.
learn interpersonal skills. It's harder to learn, curiosity. It's harder to learn listening. All those other this kind of fundamental things. It's easy to talk about, but it's harder to really ingrain into how you do things. Um, and when I think technical, whether that's deep API knowledge, deep cybersecurity knowledge, or it's just in my world fintech knowledge, understanding like accounting
Yeah,
knowledge. So I group that into technical as well. Uh, like that stuff, generally speaking, you can learn. I think it's always great if you have both, but it's much harder to change who someone is and what motivates them than it is to teach them how a widget works.
yeah. I always love asking this question because I feel like every leader has a different answer. And I think it's meant to be that way because every product is different, every industry is different. And, sometimes leaders are like, hey, you know what? I got the formula down for teaching you how to be a strong communicator or teaching you how to be a great storyteller. But the technical expertise, I can't teach it right now. I need the opposite. And
Right.
on your case, it's more like the opposite, which I love as well. And that's why I think the role itself is such a great role because there is so much flexibility, and every company really just defines it differently, and every leader defines it differently. Hence why we have like, I don't know, 500 titles for just one role
Just one.
specifically.
I, I
So
I also think it's where you are in your process and hiring your maturity as
yeah,
an organization. Earlier on, technical might mean a bit more because you just need someone who can roll up their sleeves and get it done
right.
without a lot of oversight. But I think as an organization matures and there's a group of folks that can also support, I think the the other things are definitely much more important to me.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. What would you say? So when it comes to companies and proactive hiring versus reactive hiring is always like sometimes can feel like a gamble, and there's like a little bit of a fine line between going from proactive to like reactive. And many companies will wait till they're literally drowning in demo requests before hiring an SE. What is your take on that end, like the proactive versus reactive? And how do you define, like, how do you do that as a leader? When do you know it's a right time to start hiring?
I'm I'm somewhat, in an ideal world, you have a bench and proactive is great. I don't think it's realistic. Personally, I think everything is based upon do you have the capacity within the team, and you can tell if you have the capacity or you don't. You're dealing with uh, finance teams and CEOs that are very operationally budget conscious, and so an extra SC, we're not inexpensive. I think you have to be very careful there.
Yeah,
We're not a consulting firm where you always have to have that bench to bring people on for billable hours. Um, I think you have to get ahead of reactive, but it's also based upon like what the numbers are telling you. Like, do you have the bandwidth to support? Do you not have the bandwidth to support? And before you say you don't have the bandwidth support, are you working on the right things? So before I
mhm,
ever look to hire, are there things that we're doing and things we're supporting that we shouldn't? or we can push off before I bring someone on. And having gone through worlds where I've had to reduce headcount through restructuring rifts, whatever it may be,
Yeah.
because of the overcapacity, I tend to be pretty cognizant of the fact that if you have idle time, your SEs start worrying about their job security, and that's just not a world you want to live
Yeah,
in
that
if you
is
can avoid it.
true. Yeah. Do you as a leader look into, or maybe help the team into like either restructuring their day or seeing how to be more effective with their time, because I feel like also that like being self-efficient is a skill you need to learn. Not everybody knows how to do it. So what is your take on that? Do you typically help them as a leader, or do you hire to make sure that they have that efficiency already?
I think a lot of it's individual. One, I look for people that are sufficient. They'll get stuff done. They'll be able to determine what's important to do and what's not important to do, and at least I try to do that. You never 100% can know in an interview cycle. I
Right.
will help. I will help as needed. But I've been quite fortunate that I haven't had a bunch of folks in my world that I felt were inefficient with their time. It's steering them towards the right projects on what prep looks like, what prep doesn't look like. But I'll hop in where I think someone needs help, but I also like to
Mhm.
treat people as adults and let them work in the way that works best for them, as
Right.
long as I'm not seeing adverse impacts to like deals closing, or why are you able to only handle 5 accounts at a time? This
Mhm.
other person can handle 50, like that kind of stuff. That's pretty obvious. Other than that, like I don't want to be in people's business on how they manage their days, and
Yeah.
when they want to prepare for something. That's just me.
Yeah. What would you say based on that, kind of like the hardest part of being a leader is?
You're dealing with so many different personalities,
Yeah.
and you're dealing not just within your team, but cross functionally.
Yeah.
And just like with prospects, you kind of have to meet people where they're at, and how they want to be communicated to, and what resonates with them.
Right.
And being able to balance all of that and doing it in a way that doesn't feel like you're just going through the motions because that's how they want to learn, but authentically wanting to assist them in a way that makes the most sense for them. I think that's a thing they don't teach you. You just kind of have to learn. I think that's really difficult. I think I've gotten better over the years, and just
Yeah.
part is understanding what motivates people. Everyone's motivated by something slightly different, and that has been a very big part of how I've been able to navigate that.
Yeah, I love that. I do think that like a part of being a leader should sometimes be understanding human psychology, like a little bit of, being
Yeah,
like a therapist. Because when
absolutely.
you understand that, and I agree, I think it's really hard because humans are unpredictable species, everybody's so different. Like you said, everybody's motivated by different things. So it's hard to put everybody in a box. And as a leader, the way you communicate with one person does not necessarily might sit well with the other person. Some
Yeah,
people prefer you to be direct, straight to the point, and others are like, "Well, can you sugarcoat it for me a little bit? I'll still do
yeah,
it, and be coachable." But
yeah.
yeah.
Some people want public acknowledgement, and some people don't like it at all.
Yes. Yeah.
And so all of these things, but then how do you do that and balance things so it doesn't look like you're playing favorites?
Right. Yeah. Well,
It's the group dynamic of everything that the larger it gets, the more actually the larger it gets, the easier it gets to me.
yeah. Yeah.
Um, yeah, it's just
Not to put you in the spot, but is there anything specific that you've either like any trainings or anything that you've gone through when it comes to leadership that you're like, oh, I really like that, that's helped me a lot, or any books maybe that you read?
um there's a book I read a while ago, author John Gordon, The Power of the Positive Team.
Okay.
Um and it's not a long actually it's actually yeah,
Oh, love that.
Power of the Positive Team. It's sitting right here.
Love that.
Um and it's just about like being human. Like it's like you can use the word love in a work environment in a very appropriate way. Like
Yeah,
you
yeah.
can treat people, but it's how you get people to goals, and like it's just a really nice framework, and being authentic, and building teams. And it's just I've that was an inflection point for me when I read it, and it changed partly how I approach things. It's not the be all end all to everything,
Right.
and it's not too touchy feely, which I think can be overboard at times. But it was a
Yeah, yeah.
good, and he has a bunch of different books, but that one to me just really resonated.
I love that. I do think that sometimes as leaders, and I include myself in that too, leading teams, having employees or team members, it's hard to like draw a line between like, okay, you're trying to be still human and understand, what they're going through because there's stuff that goes through personally with everybody, but you still need to hold them accountable. It's like,
Yeah.
okay, I understand this is happening, but like how do we bridge that gap? And like I still need to hold you accountable to things, and success and results. One book that's helped me tremendously personally is called Gapology, a great book on how to hold people accountable, how to have them set their own deadlines, and make sure that what happens if we don't hit those deadlines, what does that look like? So if you or anybody listening is kind of sometimes struggling with, how to do that while still being quote unquote like a good person and like a good leader but still need to hold results, that's a great book to you can listen to it on Audible or buy it. I have it in both personally, but that's a great book that's helped me tremendously, for sure, on the leadership side.
I,
um, what would you say, since we're in the topic of leading people and performance and results, what would you say separates a good SE from like an A player or top performer?
um, I think adaptability is one that's probably not used enough.
Mhm.
Curiosity and clearly knowledge. I use like knowledge of products as just table stakes. Like to be a good SE, you've got to know your solutions. Otherwise, there's just no
Yeah,
way you can be good. I just end of the day, we're here to help people solve problems, and if you don't know your solution set, you can't
yeah.
do that. But being adaptable to the situation, understanding now more than ever, you have to meet the buyers where they're at. They have so much more information at their fingertips, and their expectations are not always to go through your process. So how do you
Mhm.
get what you need in a different kind of way? Adaptability, curiosity, coachability, I think
Mhm.
is important. But and that's at any level, like to my level, coachability. I think
Right.
that's. But I think, but I definitely preach adaptability and flexibility a lot to the team.
Yeah, yeah. That's huge. I agree with that, and the coachability part too. Is there anything that you do as a leader to help them kind of either develop that skill set or you said you mentioned that a lot. Is there any training or anything that you do on that end to help kind of continue that skill set and continue growing it?
Um, yeah, I've definitely brought in some outside speakers to talk to the team about
Yeah.
that. I have a rubric set up in Gong so that I can score demos and conversations to help guide. And one of them is like, are you addressing the needs of the customer? Like all the things that
Yeah.
matter, flexibility. And then it's just constantly having that conversation, constantly saying what's most important. It doesn't matter what you want to show; it's what do they need to see. Um, and with that tied to that flexibility, I think what's most a guiding principle for me for the team is our job is to solve, not to sell, right?
Love that. Yeah.
And I think solving, if you're trying to solve a problem, you have to adapt and be flexible based upon the conversation you're having, not trying to push forward your specific selling agenda. They'll often go hand in hand because
Right.
if you're adapting and hearing and all that kind of stuff, you can sell better. But if you focus on the problem at hand and solving it, you have a much better chance of actually selling.
Yeah, I agree. What do you say when it comes to like you as a leader? Is there any like specific KPIs? I know you mentioned a little bit on that you use Gong there. Is there any specific KPIs or anything that you really look for? And what do those tell you in terms and how do you use them for training, if anything?
Well, I'm trying to look for actions that lead to outcomes.
Right.
So one of the things I just, there's an age-old thing. SEs want to be on as many discovery calls as possible. AEs maybe don't want you to do that. So I've introduced the ability for an SE to say whether or not they were on a discovery call when they're engaged. And then I can look at metrics on, see what happens when you have an SE on a discovery call. Your
Yeah.
close rates go higher. I think that's an area. I mean, the general win rates, the win rates across different segments, industries, etc. If we do certain things, our cycle time shorter. Is another example.
Yeah.
It's something I'm trying. I'm just starting to try to implement. It really depends on what tools you have at
Right. For sure.
um, but the more I've been in leadership, the more I care about the actions and activities that lead to outcomes.
Yeah.
Because those are things that are kind of predictive to like what's a good process, and they're also things I can then use to win people to that are not necessarily wanting to do things, like not even just within my organization but outside. Hey, VP of sales, and just using as an example, when we're on discoveries, your win rate goes up by 15%. Maybe have your AEs invited to discovery
It's a,
calls. So that's the kind of stuff I'm
yeah.
looking for a lot more nowadays.
I love that. Yeah, I agree. I think that there's like so many things you can track overall as a leader. You can track anything and everything that you want to. My expression I like to say is if you're tracking everything, you're tracking nothing
Yeah.
because you can't do everything with all the information you have. So I love that. When it comes to somebody wanting to join the space, I get that question a lot personally, obviously being in the recruiting world, is like I want to switch, from this career to an SE. What do you think is like, and I obviously will depend, of course, a lot on their background, what they have a skill set in already. What do you think is like a best path that you would recommend, or maybe things that they can do to start standing out to leaders, to hiring managers, so that they can get their foot in the door?
So I think if they're at an organization today that has a solutions consulting function, how can you volunteer to do projects worth them cross-functionally, get some insight and visibility into that? I think always is helpful because now you've gained some skills, you might have made some connections, and even if there's not an opportunity there, maybe someone can help you connect somewhere else. I think that's always important. I think try to find, if you're looking to change roles or careers or functions, try to find companies that are hiring that you have domain experience in. So if you
Yeah,
were in customer
great tip.
success or an AE in fintech or healthcare, try to find companies where you can take your business knowledge, because once again, those are stories you can tell to potential prospects, and so that domain knowledge transfers. At my last company, Topalti, and even currently where I'm at now at Employ, like, you want to hire people from industry. So half the team were, never SCs, but were CPAs, or used to be recruiters, and now they want to be SCs because you're now relatable. So trying to
Yeah,
find, that's going to be the easiest jump and the easiest chance for someone to take a chance on you as a leader, because you at least have the domain knowledge. I think that's a big, for me, things I look at.
yeah, I think you're spot on. And the one thing I say on top of that is you have to start very niche, right? Because like you said, you have to transfer something, and you can go maybe from like a CPA to like a DevOps SE. Like it just doesn't, make sense. The other thing I say too is like, and this also depends on your background. Sometimes when they have a very strong technical background, it works in their favor. But if they're coming from that not so strong technical background, what I always say is, start with like the companies that are not startups, because they already have onboarding. They have the
Yeah.
ability to train you and to get you to that SE level. And then from there, obviously, you can start shifting to a startup or scale up. But coming into it and not having that background, I think those companies are great. And even like you said with Employee, like that's great because you have the background. Now I can train you on the rest. And I think that's also a great way to get into it.
Absolutely. And a lot of those larger companies have almost like academies or training programs so you can get your foot in the door. Maybe
Yeah.
you want to be an SC, but they have a demo engineer role, or they have,
Yeah, absolutely.
or maybe they, and I know that a lot of this is going away, but like an RFP, like anything that can get you into the org. Because
Yeah,
getting yourself into the org is half the battle, and then you can prove
for
yourself,
sure.
you prove yourself out. I mean, I've done that in my career when I was in professional services. I just volunteered to do some stuff as a side project that turned into, a 7, 8 year career in professional services before I moved into product. And it all started by raising your hand and volunteering to do something within my own organization. So I think that's like, whatever it is, if you can do it and get your foot in that org, I go for it.
I love that. Yeah, it doesn't have to be a straight path. I totally agree. Like you can just start in, put your foot in the door, and then slowly start, volunteering, or when the role opens up, put yourself through that. So you can go to, because I think sometimes a lot of people will think, well, it's not an SE role, so I like the company, but I don't want to join because it's customer service or it's customer management. And it's like, okay, great, put your foot in the door. You're already getting customer facing experience, learning everything about the company, and now it's way easier for that company to say, yeah, we'll transfer you to an SE role because you have all the knowledge. I just need to train you a little bit better on some specific skill set.
Yeah, it's
With that being said, just entering a company overall, what I'd love to hear your side on how do people stand out to you? If there's, let's just say you guys have an opening right now and you're getting all these applications and resumes, what are some things that stand out to you when it comes to hiring? What should people be doing when it comes to submitting applications nowadays that will give them a higher chance of at least getting in front of you?
Yeah, I mean, do your research on the company. I think that's obvious, but when you're talking to someone, if someone doesn't have a good reason on why they're interested, like, and they don't know what the company does, yeah, next.
Yeah,
I mean, it is very competitive, I think, but even to get in the door, I mean, work your network. Do you know anyone who might know me, might know someone on the team? Referrals are always going to be better, particularly when you're weeding through, hundreds of
yeah,
applications. Um, Try to tailor your resume as best you can to the role. Not disingenuous, but if it's asking for certain types of things, make sure those certain types of things are in there. It never hurts to reach out asynchronously outside of the interview process. Maybe even drop a note to the leader to see if they'd be interested in informational chat before you even submit, to see if it's even worth the time and their time. I mean, all those things it's hard to stand out, unfortunately, unless you can get in front of somebody.
yeah,
But once you're if you get in front of somebody, it's, for me, what's super important is the type of questions that people ask.
I
Um,
love that.
like about the company, about the role, about not about the comp structure on the first interview, not about
Yeah.
like the generic stuff that's that is extremely important before you sign, but not important when you're trying to figure out this is a place you want to work.
Yeah, and I think that has to do because you said that you look for the curiosity, right, as
Yep.
one part of your important skill set. So them asking questions is part of that skill set.
Yep.
I love that you said that, and I want to play devil's advocate here and say,
Yep.
I get it, Dave. I need to tailor my resume. I need to, get in front of you guys, but I'm applying to 100 jobs all the time. What would you say to those people that are just mass applying and just not getting any responses? And honestly, they're tired at this point.
Well, I mean, if you're applying for hundreds of jobs, you don't know what you want to do. I don't mean to be. I mean that
I
somewhat
know you don't mean it in a rude way.
joking
Yeah.
directly, because I have a lot of empathy and understand it's a really really rough market out there, but you have to really know what you want and be focused on what you want. And if you focus
Yeah.
on that, you have a better chance of focus on, instead of applying to 100 jobs, do some networking and apply to 20 or 15, much more that fit what you're looking for. Because unfortunately, with you know AI being part of the resume review process right now, I mean, we have, I work at Employ, it's an HR
All
tech
right.
list, and we have something called Talent Fit, which helps hiring managers and recruiters understand, based on the job posting and your resume, is this a strong fit or not? Without having any bias introduced, but
Right.
like, but if you're just applying to 100 jobs, the odds of your resume fitting that job description on 100 jobs is really low, particularly if you're just trying to enter. So I think you have to that's why tailoring becomes more important, as long as it's honest. Um,
Right.
and then you carry that through every conversation you have. But if you're applying for 100 jobs, you're doing
You're
yourself
clicking the
a
easy
disservice.
apply button. That's what you're
You
doing.
are, and you're doing yourself a disservice just emotionally too.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
like that's
Absolutely.
potential 100 ghosting or rejections or whatever it is, and like that's not good for anyone's mental health.
I was just gonna say that discouragement, I mean, it'll get to anybody. I don't care how strong you are or how top of a performer you are, for sure.
Yeah.
I will say this, I had a candidate once that we worked with and we placed, and when we got the offer, we signed, everything was good to go. He was like, "Oh, RV, I can finally like relax and close out all my spreadsheets of the jobs that I had." So what this guy was doing, which was pretty great, and obviously that's how we ended up getting the job, is not applying to 100 jobs at a time, but he was picking up every job that he wanted to be a part of, whatever the role was, putting it on a spreadsheet, finding out who the hiring manager was outside of recruiters, et cetera, just trying to go directly to the person, um, engaging with their content, sending a DM on LinkedIn, trying to even call them. And this was a sales engineering role. And putting like a last date of contact. So like even with me, when he found me, he actually messaged me 3 times before I got back to him, and not because I was being rude, but honestly, just you miss the DMs sometimes. You guys might get a ton of DMs. At the time I was getting a lot, and I was managing a lot of things. And on the third message, I was like, oh my god, I forgot to respond to this person, and that's how we literally got the job for him. And we placed him with the company. But sometimes, especially if you don't have a job currently, it is your full-time job to look for a job. And
Yep.
like you said, I think it's way more efficient for your time and your mental health to apply to 20, but be super highly targeted on those 20. And even if you get rejected, like try, not everybody will give it. I get that, but try to ask for a specific reason. Okay, what can I do better?
Yep.
What is it that I can improve on? And I do agree that right now your LinkedIn and your resume are like your landing page. You'll have to put things on there that sell you better. And sometimes it's hard for people to sell themselves. They're great at selling products, they're great at selling companies, but when it comes to yourself, you might just not be the best at it. But in a good way, utilize AI for your advantage at this point, right? And I tell everybody, think of your resume on listing outcomes, not tasks. So yes, you did 20 plus projects at a time. What did those projects lead to, or what did those demos lead to that brought the company revenue, that brought the company, an increase in ARR, percentage, whatever that looks like. And that's how you start standing out.
Uh,
Is there, oh, yeah, go ahead.
I think if I see a resume that's got metrics on it, uh,
Yes. Thank
uh,
you for validating my point.
like I helped close, 25 deals worth 2
Yes.
million in revenue, led like all those kinds of things matter because I'm in sales, like I'm in solutions consulting, but I'm in sales. I need to understand that led the team 4 straight quarters in, the most revenue with number of
Yes.
logos, all that kind of stuff, not just what you did, but what you accomplished. And your resume should be
Absolutely.
accomplishments, not tasks.
Absolutely. Totally agree. What is there any other tips or anything in terms of resume like wise that when you see it as a hiring manager? And actually, before you answer that, I did want to ask because we do get a lot of people now that are like, oh, but I'm trying to tailor the resume to match the AI algorithm. What are you, I know you said you guys are using one. Can you give me some tips on like, what does that look like? Is it keywords that they need to make sure to include? How does the AI match it to the resume?
It's looking at the job description. Like,
Okay.
like, like, what is the job description, which you should be doing irrespective of AI.
Right.
Like I'm telling you, this is what I'm looking for, right?
Yeah.
And so, even if I'm doing it manually, or I've written the
In your
job
mind.
description,
Right,
so
right.
I already know, right? Like that's going to come up in any conversation you have anyway, right? Like that. So that is what I'm. This is the blueprint for what we're looking for. So your
Hmm.
resume, hopefully 80% of it is already covered because it's just a lot of things are similar, like what you need to do, discovery, all that kind of fun stuff, tailored demos, presentations, etc. But there are going to
Yeah.
maybe certain things that are very unique to an organization. Like if I talk about needing a certain credential or a coding language, let's say, that better be in your resume if you have it. And if it's
Yeah.
not, that's gonna show you that you're missing something. And that's where, AI can help in that. And even like LinkedIn's AI does stuff like that, where it can tell
Right.
you, and it tells you that you're missing this. And that's a lot of the things that responsible AI is going to do. Like people that use AI responsibly are going to look at it, and from a hiring perspective, this person's resume is missing like these four things that we're looking for when we hire. So they may not be considered a high potential fit. In reality, you may be a high fit. You just didn't do your due diligence and put the things in that I've told you are important. I mean, that's why I talk about tailoring. And then you're not worried about fooling AI, not fooling AI, but meeting the AI algorithm. You're meeting the job description,
Absolutely.
what the hiring manager is asking for. That's how I look at it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So true because I honestly will get a resume sometimes. And I love to give feedback because I want to help as much as I can. So I'll see a resume and I see all these like buzzwords and like these like big words that sometimes I don't even understand. I'm like, what does this even mean like to the job or that you did? And the answer I get is, well, I'm just trying to make sure that I match the AI algorithm.
Yeah.
And I'm like, if you don't even know what that means.
But beyond that, you get past the AI algorithm, that resume still gets into the hands of a human.
Yeah.
And then I'm looking at it, I'm like, yeah, this looks like you were trying to just get through an AI algorithm. It's not a cohesive, comprehensive, or it doesn't make sense what you're doing here. It's just a bunch of words.
Yeah.
I may look at it and tell the recruiter, yeah, no,
Yeah.
because like this is not still like not what I'm looking for, because they're just trying to trick a
Right.
system, not actually apply to the job. Like, I don't
Yeah.
know. Even though they are trying to apply, they're applying for the job, but they didn't just like give me the resume in a consumable format that lets me know that they have the skills that are needed and they're in the experience that are needed. They just trying to game the system just so I'll look at it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny, I think in an AI world right now, the personalization, the human touch, the tailoring is like more important than ever. So it's funny to see that we're trying to, implement AI as much as we can, but then on the other hand is like you still have to put a ton of human touch to it.
Oh, absolutely. And yet run your resume through an AI and say, hey, this is a job description. This is my resume. How can I? But then don't just copy and paste it.
Right.
Like take the recommendations and use your own word. I mean,
Yeah,
like use your own words, because people will tell that it was AI written. Like we're
for
starting
sure.
to, as a species, we're starting to adapt and be able to tell what AI is and what it was not. Like this was
Yeah.
authentic human. All those little things end up being big things in a sea of hundreds of candidates. Those little things you do well, or
Yeah.
the little things you don't do well, right,
Yeah.
are going to differentiate you for
Yeah.
the positive and potentially for the negative.
I love that. No, I think it's great. I'm of the completely same mindset. I'd love to end with this. What do you suggest to, let's do the leadership side first, the aspiring leader. What are some of the things you would suggest for them to hone in on when it comes to skill set, or just really be aware of as they maybe either are a brand new leader or getting into that position?
The first thing I always ask anyone who's talked to me about leadership is understand why you want to be a leader.
Mm,
What's motivating you? Oftentimes it's because that's how you can make more money, which
hmm
is the absolute worst reason to become a leader. Um, because that you have to have a desire to coach and teach and put, like others come in front of you, like it's serve, all that kind of stuff to be successful. So if you can't, you have to define your why. Why do I want to be a leader? And if it's just money, maybe the principal SC route is your role, or maybe it's not that. And I've had that
Yeah.
conversation with folks. Um, Once you get to that, it goes back to something we talked about earlier. When you're an individual contributor, it's about just getting your deals done, right, and being the best in my technical craft. When you start leading an organization, it's other people come first. Like you end up, yes, you report to me, but I work for you, is the way my mindset is. And so my job now is, how do I put everyone else in the best position to be successful? And so it's
Yeah.
understanding and trying to get your mind, and like that's why I think The Power of the Positive Team was a good book for me, because it helped me get to that point. It's reframing what's important. It's like, how good are you at olive branching cross departmentally when there are issues, like work on your problem solving skills when it comes to
Yes, huge.
interpersonal, cross-functional stuff, not just technical stuff. Be okay with no longer being the most knowledgeable person on your product. You have to be okay with that, because once you get to a certain level of leadership and you're not a player coach, you're not in the weeds anymore. And you have
Yeah.
to put your ego aside and say, yeah, I tell at this point, I tell my team, I want to be the worst SC on the team.
Right.
I do, and that doesn't mean I don't want to be a good SC, but I want to be the worst one on the team because I shouldn't be the best SC on the team anymore. It's a mindset shift more than than a skill set shift, in my opinion.
Yeah.
It's what you focus on that matters.
Yeah. I love that you said that. I've actually read that from John Maxwell where he talks about servant leadership. You're not in charge, you're there to serve others so they can be in charge, because when they look good and they do well, you
Yeah,
automatically look good and do well as well.
absolutely.
So I love that you said that. And I agree. I've had plenty of times where I've had talent or candidates come to me and I'll look at their profile and I'm saying, hey, but you're like in a managerial position or even director level. They're like, yeah, I don't enjoy that anymore. I just want to go back to being an IC and just worry about myself, not have to worry about others.
Yeah,
Leadership is too hard, and we throw that word around a lot, but at the end of the day, like true leaders understand that it's really hard to make sure that you're not just moving yourself forward at this time, you're moving like a whole team of people forward and making sure that you still succeed. So,
yeah. And not to sound like a fortune cookie, but there's leadership and there's managing, and you don't need to be a manager to be a leader.
mhm,
I've worked with plenty of people that are ICs, but they lead, they drive direction, they drive um, cross functional collaboration, they drive the vibe of the team, like through the how they like, all that stuff. You can still lead without having people report to you,
right.
and so you can do all that. You have to also want to do the managerial crap. Excuse my language, right? Like the like do you want to write 7 performance reviews? Is that something you're interested
Yeah.
in doing? Because guess what? That's part of the process. Do you want to work on development plans? It's all the things you don't think about. You have to make sure you want to do it, but you can lead no matter where you sit.
Absolutely, absolutely. I agree. David, thank you so much. This was great. Thank you for joining, sharing your insight. There's tons of gold in here for anybody in obviously pre-sales or building a team if you're in the leadership position. For those watching live or catching the replay, please connect with Dave on LinkedIn, or drop any questions that you might have in the comments, and we'll keep an eye out and respond to them even after this. But thank you everybody for tuning in, and we'll see you on the next one.
Thank you very much.